millor. És que és molt barroero. Sí, sí. Sí, hola, sí, sí. Ah. No, jo vaig... Mentre que sigui el millor possible, he de saber que aquest sistema és una merda. I és que tindre micròfon allà ha vingut tota la penya. O sigui... La millor...
course.
You had water on your seats, so you can just... Yeah. It is a little warm in here. It feels like it's getting a bit cooler. It's getting a little bit cooler in here. People are coming in, so shall we wait 2 minutes? Susan made it to the airport. That's good.
From Mexico. Sonja, are you taking some pictures for me?
Yes. Yesterday.
The whole panel?
No,
the whole panel, and particularly maybe?
Yeah.
Sure. Excellent.
Just three close-ups of that way.
And then after this one,
close-ups. It's my pen a month ago. I have not just had it, but I think it was a little bit disorganized. Yes.
Hi, hello, is everybody ready? Could we start?
Yes.
Could we start?
Yeah, we just said there's people that are coming up. There was the
Okay.
people who were lost.
Okay.
Are we doing speak or recording?
Yeah. Is it live now?
No, it's not live. No, there's a streaming, but we are waiting until you say...
Let's just let 30 seconds.
Okay.
It's a public live stream or just for the participants?
Let me see. I was confusing. I was going to say Surabaya, but Surabaya is not in Indonesia. Yeah.
All right.
18. Surabaya.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this roundtable called Setting the Terms, the Future of Work in Higher Education. This not quite round table, but is actually a stage, a sort of half of a round table maybe, is the second part of a global conversation that we've been having here at the WHEC on the future of the workforce in higher education. It's been hosted by Education International, which is the global union federation representing 32 million educators through its 383 member organizations, together with UNESCO's International Institute for Higher Education in Latin America and the Caribbean, IESALC. I'm David Edwards. I'll be your moderator and host for this afternoon. I'm the General Secretary of Education International. I'm really pleased to be moderating this important discussion. Just to recap, yesterday, in the first panel of the series, we really had an excellent discussion sort of on where we've been, the impact, what COVID has been, what it has meant for education workers in higher education. We heard about the challenges that have been faced, the emergency teaching, the online challenges. We touched upon some possible avenues for action. And we are starting to plan and think a little bit about what we've learned in the crisis and what we need to incorporate in terms of the recovery coming out of it. And maybe this morning some of you were at the ILO UNESCO panel on the future of teaching that got a little bit more into the pedagogy, teacher identity, a very interesting conversation about students, professionalism. But really now what we want to talk about is what is it going to take concretely to attract, support, and retain a qualified and motivated workforce in higher education at this particular moment in time. What will it take to get there? There's a lot of talk right now about the roadmap that is being discussed and has been put forward by UNESCO for higher education, with some off-ramps at 2030, other off-ramps at 2050. But we know that we're not going to succeed in any roadmap. We're not going to be able to have anything until there is petrol in the car, that we have functioning tires on the car, and that we have people that are willing to actually drive the car and follow the map. The map is one thing. So we need to make sure that education workers and the profession is involved in designing that map and making sure that the conditions are there so that we can actually all arrive. As the theme of the conference is, leave no one behind. A map that leaves those behind is not a very good map. So we need to have a conversation about that. I think the other thing I just want to say is that a lot of the themes that the conference is dealing with relate directly to the profession. And some of those things have not been dealt with in depth, but we want to touch on some of them today as well, around governance in higher education, financing. We talked about the petrol in the car, quality, equity, just to name a few. But what we want to do today is open up the conversation to those in the room and those of you who are online to have a conversation, discuss what we need to do, what needs to change. Because we have talked about the fact that we need to change. We need to learn from these experiences, and in order to support the workforce to deliver quality teaching for students and quality research that will help us really deal with some of the greatest challenges of our time. We're in a moment of a confluence of crises. And that's why we've gathered this fantastic panel today. First, we have Andreas Keller, who is the Vice President of the German Trade Union for Education and Research, GEW, as well as the Vice President of EI's European region, ETUCE. He's also EI ETUC representative in the Bologna follow-up group. Next to him, we have Yamile Sokolovsky, who's a professor of political philosophy at the Universidad Nacional de La Plata in Argentina. She's the Director of Research and Capacity Building Institute of CONADU and the International Secretary of the organization. She is also the Training and Research Secretary of the Union Confederation, the Central de Trabajadores de Argentina. Next to Yamile, we have Zahrom Naim, who is the chair of the Malaysian Academic Movement, MOVE. It's a great name, by the way, Ron. He is a professor of media and communication studies at the University of Nottingham in Malaysia, and his research interests are in the sociology of communications, the political economy of media. And last but certainly not least, we are really pleased to be joined by Fernando Leon, who is the rector of the CETYS University in Mexico and the president of the International Association of University Presidents, which is a worldwide platform comprised of university chief executives that facilitates the exchange of professional experience. So we are very happy about the composition of this panel. We have strong union representation. Indeed, the conversation can only happen, as I said, if higher education workers and their democratically elected representatives are at the table, which is important for them to be here. Our member organizations are really at the forefront of supporting their members in really daily struggles we've been talking about over the last 2 days. But they're also active at the national, regional, and global level to shape the reforms for decent work and quality education. And at the same time, I think it's really fantastic, Fernando, that you're here, who represents, we would say metaphorically, the other side of the table, if I may say so.
I'm going to say the dark side.
The light side of the other side of the table, higher education institutions, which are the employers in many instances. And so this is exactly the kind of informed dialogue we're looking to have, and we want to thank you for joining us. But before we start, we have a little poll. I'm going to pose it to the panelists, and you can all think about it to yourself. And those of you who are online, you can use the chat and participate yourselves. And those of you who are in the room can indicate with your own hands, because you'll see what. So the last UNESCO World Higher Education Conference was held in 2009, a long time ago. So on a scale from 1 to 10, looking at where we were in 2009 and where we are now, would you say that we're on the right track towards an empowered and well-supported workforce in higher education? Okay? More than 5 means we're getting there. Less than 5 means we're going in the opposite direction. Yeah? So let me just, the panelists can just say out loud the number. The rest of you, I'll just give a chance. So, Fernando.
Just a number? 7.
7.
Yeah.
Saharam?
The opposite, 3.5.
3.5. Yamile?
3.
3. Andreas?
I would say 5.
5. I think we're up for a very interesting conversation. Anybody in the room want to venture? Are there any 10s? No 10s. Any 1s? Okay. And Tina, you're less than 1? Okay. Anyway, I think there's significant work for us, and this is an important conversation. So thank you all for engaging and indulging me on that little poll. So let's go to our roundtable and pick up some of the key areas that came up in the conversation yesterday and go deeper with those. So the first component is quality terms and conditions, which is an aspect that is not actually currently covered in the roadmap, but it came up very clearly in our discussion yesterday and the one that was held this morning. So I'm going to come to you first, Andreas. From your perspective in Germany, and also more broadly considering your work at European level, what would you say are the main concerns of teachers, researchers, and higher education support personnel when they consider their professional future? And what are the key issues that we will need to address when it actually comes to quality terms and conditions?
Thank you, David, for the questions, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today. Just let me give a reason for the 5. I said 5 because I think we have managed to raise the awareness that quality teaching needs teachers and with a good environment and working conditions. But on the other hand, the conditions have not really improved in the last years. And teachers, academics are facing a lot of problems, a deterioration somehow of their working conditions. The first problem is the fixed-term contract problem. Let me give you an example from Germany. Admittedly, it is an extreme example, but we have within the group of academics, apart from professors in terms of shareholders, we have a percentage of 90% who have fixed-term contract, and the majority of them have very short fixed-term contracts with a duration of 1 year or 1.5 years. And under these circumstances, academics are not able to do quality work, neither quality teaching nor quality research. And this is the main problem. We have a casualization of work, and we have a lack of tenure, a lack of reliable career path, and this is a main trend in other countries in Europe as well. And this is one of the reasons for this development, just one, but one important reason is the change and the lack of funding. Lack of funding of higher education on one hand, and on the other hand, the system has changed. So the basic funding by states is being reduced, and on the other hand, competitions, programs are funded in a better way. So universities, higher education institutions are forced to apply for additional funding in order to do their work. And so this causes insecurity concerning working conditions, fixed-term contracts. And this is another problem. We have this kind of marketization. And this means not automatically privatization, because also public institutions can be marketized, but this is a huge problem. We have also an increase of workload. We were talking about yesterday in the session about the COVID-19 pandemic. Teachers had to develop methods and didactics for remote teaching. They were not prepared for that. They had their children at home when kindergartens had a shutdown in schools. And apart from that, we have a general development that institutions get more and more tasks. They have to do quality assurance. They have to do curricular development in Europe, the Bologna process, for example. They have to apply for additional funding, and all these additional tasks are on the shoulders of academics. And we have furthermore a worse student-teacher ratio. So more and more students, but more or less the same number of academics. And therefore we have an overload of work. And let me mention the last problem. The last problem is a lack of participation, of lack of social dialogue and collegial governance, because institutions are more and more understood as enterprises. We have the entrepreneurial university as an idea, and to this system does not fit that academics are part of the academic community, and this is another main trend, and therefore I'm worried, and maybe you are wondering why I have said 5. It's a little strange because we have bad development, but on the other hand we have, as I said, raised awareness and by governments, and we are talking about this issue in this conference also. In the opening session, academics, teachers were mentioned several times, and so we should now try to struggle in order to improve the working conditions, the framework for academics.
Fantastic. So could you maybe then expand a little bit for us about what that looks like? What are the unions doing? What's their role? And sort of where have you seen some positive developments? But where do you see the role of the unions in that particular area?
Yes, I think what the unions should not do is to wait that all these academics with bad conditions come to them. So the unions have to reflect what have changed, and so they have to address the problems the people have, and the population, the body of academics has changed. We have a lot of early stage researchers, we have precarious workers, and therefore the unions have to reflect these changed conditions, and they have also reflect that we have a new generation of academics, maybe who have other values. They stress more topics like work-life balance than earning a lot of money, maybe, and they want to plan their life. They want to have a reliable career, and therefore the unions have to address this new group of academics and have to campaign with them. And this is something what we have tried in Germany, and I think quite successfully, that we tried to campaign. They are already active in social media. We had in Germany the so-called Ich bin Hanna, I am Hanna campaign. This was a hashtag on Twitter, which was very widespread, and we were involved in these activities and managed it, that the people realized, oh, there is an organization, a trade union, which represents us. We could go to them, we can join them. And the different levels for political activities. It's not just a challenge to persuade the national government, because they cannot decide so many issues. We have also to be active on the level of the faculty and other institution rectors and leaders, because we have autonomous institutions, and the